Welcome to the talk show Promising Bangladesh, sponsored by Crown Cement. And this is Sinha M.A. Sayeed anchoring this very talk show. Well, viewers, today we have invited two guests. One is Mr. Bobby Hajjaj.
Thank you.
Chairman of NDM, Nationalist Democratic Movement, and a leading political thinkers in Bangladesh. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm well.
Thank you. Other being Barrister Zillur Rahman. He is a former police officer and a leading political analyst. At the same time, during the last few years, he was living in UK, and from there, he was having so many responsibilities from his standpoints. And thank you very much. How are you, Mr.
Yes,
Zillur?
I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bobby Hajjaj,
Ji.
you are a politician. And during the greatest turmoil in our national life, you played a very vital role in favor of the movement. And I have personally watched your so many videos in talk shows and televisions everywhere. And what is your focus on the fall of Sheikh Hasina?
First and foremost, thank you so much, Dr.Sinha, for the invitation. Through you, I want to convey my salam and regards to everybody who's watching this show. The fall of Sheikh Hasina, or Sheikh Hasina's regime, was a big win for democracy in Bangladesh. I would say it's not just a big win for democracy, but it's a big win period for Bangladesh. One of the biggest wins we've had, the only win that we can compare with the fall of Sheikh Hasina is us winning our independence back in 1971. Because the repression that was caused by this government over the last 15 and a half years can only be compared to colonial governments of yore. 100 years ago, before the Second World War, how the colonial governments, repressed people, how they oppressed the masses, how, sort of freedom of speech, freedom of movement, any sort of political assembly was, sort of completely banned. Those are the sorts of things Sheikh Hasina's government did over the last 15 and a half years. So, and we've been fighting against this repression, and that's why we started calling Sheikh Hasina's government a fascist government since 2014. Because if you recall, the 2013-14 election was the biggest sham election that had happened, that had transpired on this territory in our country till that time, since 1971. So we started calling her a fascist government because it was a fascist government. And even before that, we started struggling, fighting against this government. Our fight was for democracy. Our fight initially was not against Sheikh Hasina or Sheikh Hasina's government. It was a fight for democracy. But after 2014, it really became quite clear to everybody who was there to see that if you wanted democracy in Bangladesh, you had to remove Sheikh Hasina's fascism. And we struggled. I mean, I personally, what in Bangladesh we call goom. I had to experience goom. Many sorts of, repression from the hands of the government, from the hand of the Sheikh Hasina government. But I was not the only one. Hundreds of thousands of opposition leaders and workers suffered those over the last 15 and a half years. Many never to return again to their homes, to their families. Many mothers' wombs, will never be, they'll never come back. Many kids' parents will never go back. And all of this perpetrated just to hold on to power and loot this country. Because anywhere you look, everywhere you look, this government the repression was really based on looting, just like colonial governments. Like, think of the East India Company. Whatever repression that they did was not based on any sort of governmental principle or any sort of principle. Like, look at the Nazi party. It was wrong principle, but some political principle. Look at communism, wrong principle, but some political principle through which hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people perished. But Sheikh Hasina's government's principle was looting. Thanks to Almighty Allah, and next, to the youth of this country. Because for the last 2 months, the youth came alive. We were all working. For 15 years we were working. We were working, to convince different sections of our society, different, interest groups, even, the instruments of this government's oppression our sort of our own brothers, the police forces and all the other forces who are sort of sons and daughters of this soil, our brothers and sisters, but they were used and abused, manipulated as the instruments of oppression by this Sheikh Hasina's fascist regime. So we worked for 15 years to get them to work for the country, but it was our children. It was the students on the streets over the last 2 months who got everybody together. So any big revolution needs a nodal point. Sometimes it's a philosophy, sometimes it's a leader. This particular movement, it was our children. They became the nodal point. It was around them that we all converged. Us politicians, we were working. Us activists, we were working. But when our children came down on the streets and when bullets were fired at our kids, at the children, at our future, everybody galvanized. Politicians, political activists, lawyers, doctors, teachers, everybody. Everybody came together. The first point was save our children. And then the second point very quickly became apparent that if we wanted to save our children, this fascist government had to go. And so by the 5th of August, the whole nation had come down on the streets. And the Sheikh Hasina fascist government had to fall. The thing to remember now is we have sacrificed a lot to ensure that this fascist government falls. Now, our job is to ensure that a fascist government like Sheikh Hasina or this Hasina government never implants itself in this country.
I will
again.
come to you again.
Thank you.
Well, Ms. Barrister Zillur, you are not a mere voice. You are a voice around the world during this day's turmoil. Now you are in Bangladesh. What is your overall, not understanding, realization about the fall of Sheikh Hasina?
Thank you. Actually, I'm very glad and I'm very happy that I could come to Bangladesh and I can move around without any fear that I am not being groomed or I am not being kidnapped or I am not being wrongful confined. And for the last 16 years, as I had been with the police background and I worked for the police last 28 years, and also I had also 2 years experience with the military, so almost the 30 years. So with these 30 years, I have found for the 16 years the police did not follow any of the procedural law, neither they violated the constitution. And the police actually they work to keep one man into the power, and for that they did what not. So when I came in Bangladesh and everybody was so happy and glad. They were saying, and they're expecting this caretaker government. Hopefully, they will do the most of the major infrastructure and institutional development. Because for a caretaker government or the interim government, it's not very easy to deal all the matters. But what I can gauge or what I can understand, but some of the important institutional infrastructure development they should do. And just when you called me, I was in the Home Ministry, and the VP Noor and the Rashid and some of the student leaders, they went to the Home Advisor, and almost they were almost 400 to 500 the students, the VP Noor and the Rashid, they were giving lectures. When they have seen me from a distance, and they just came, they ran away and just hugging me, and they were saying that you had been the inspiration of our speech for the last 1 year, especially just before the fall of 5th August. And I believe you have also seen my video, and I said that Sheikh Hasina has to go and go and go. No option, no option, no option. And that gave them more inspiration. Although I was not physically present, but my voice and especially my legal interpretation, also the constitutional interpretation, that gave them very inspiration, and also to the political leader. So that make me very pleased. And also when I see the students, the leaders, coordinators, they make me call, and they think and they express that they have got the second independence, and all those kids are young. And most of them had not seen our independence in 1971. but they now feel and understand that the feelings of independence. But I gave them advice. So please, it is very easy to gain independence or freedom, but it is very difficult to retain. And hopefully these four, if the organization or institutional is developed, the political party is bound to come into the streamline.
I will come to that point, please. Mr. Bobby Hajjaj, Mr. Barrister Zillur is very much convinced that what happened, it should have been happened. And what he said, you listen to it very carefully.
Right, absolutely.
What is the most important memory you have during this time?
Well, I mean, so it was a tumultuous 2 months. Many things happened. I mean, we started, the movement started around the mid of June, and it took steam. And by early July, it had already, sort of formed into quite a big movement. And it was the government's time and again, the way they tried to repress this movement, the way they tried to, belittle the justified, fair and morally right demands of the students, of the youth. That gave them more power, that empowered the youth. And during this time, I mean, the one thing that I'll take with me for the rest of my life is the perseverance that was shown by our students. Like, there were many incidents, but one incident I'll tell you. On the 18th of July, I was again marching with students, like 20,000 students on the Badda highway, or the Badda big road. And all of a sudden, this big, sort of ATVs, the police ATVs, sort of rushed around, cornered, a few hundred of the students and started shooting. I was in the middle. And the first shot struck me. Because I was in front, so they probably, and maybe my face they knew, so they shot me first, rubber bullets. But as soon as I got shot, normally what happens? Somebody fires a shot, everybody gets scared, everybody flees, right? Exactly the opposite happened. My expectation was I got shot first and foremost, so I just realized that something happened, or like, a huge hit, something happened. And then the moment I had the sense to look around, I saw that I was covered. I was covered by people. Like 20, 30 people had just covered me. There was firing going on. Somebody was shooting. These things hurt, right? They feel, initially at least, they feel like real bullets. And these young children, college students, university students, some even school students, had completely covered me so that I wouldn't get hurt. As a teacher, their teacher and whatnot, the teacher wouldn't get hurt. So, there was a feeling of selflessness. Everybody was there to sacrifice, and everywhere. That day it started, and every day after that, that's what I saw. Every time, everybody was trying to protect each other. Nobody was going, okay, I'll run away, you stay where you are. Everybody was trying to protect each other. And even, a few days ago, this video went viral on YouTube and, social media, where the then Home Minister was being shown a video on a handheld device by a police officer. Next to the Home Minister was also the then Inspector General of Police. And the police officer was explaining to the Home Minister that our boys, the police, are firing live shots. One gets shot, one dies, one gets hurt, but those are the only two that have moved. Everybody else is standing still. Nobody's moving away. The spirit, the courage, the grit that's required, that our youth show. We talk about our youth in so many different ways. We talk about them as Gen Z. We talk about them as addicted to telephones. We talk about them addicted to this and that. But the courage and grit that hundreds of, not one or two. Like we get one hero, we get two heroes. No, hundreds of thousands of heroes. When everybody who stood all of July and up to the 5th of August, everybody was a hero. And I was amazed. I was bewildered. I couldn't be happier. If anything ever happens to our country, ever again, I know that we have the courage, the grit, and the tenacity of our youth, of our students, that they are not going to let things go wrong. We are here, people with experience, people who have seen things and whatnot, to guide them, to show them the way, to help them. But the true courage, strength of spirit, our youth boldly hold together. So for the future of this country, I'm not worried anymore. I was worried last 15 years. I mean, we were fighting many things. We were worried about many things. But today, the future of this country, I'm not worried. I'm proud for our youth. So if there's one thing I hold from this whole movement, it is our youth, their courage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bobby Hajjaj, and thank you very much, Barrister Zillur. Viewers are going for a short break. Please keep watching. Welcome to the talk show Promising Bangladesh, sponsored by Crown Cement. We are back to the talk show, and we are having talks with Mr. Bobby Hajjaj, Chairman of NDM, and Barrister Zillur. Both of them are a vocal voice in the talk show world. And Mr. Zillur Rahman. We know very well that the government has informed, headed by Nobel laureate Professor Dr. Yunus. What is your analysis on the government?
Well, initially I was a little bit confused that within these short number of advisors whether they can handle it or not. But gradually they are gaining and everything is becoming normal. But what I gaze, I am not sure, but what I gaze, Professor Dr. Yunus has kept 27 ministry under him. But hopefully, I am not sure, I don't have any information, but I believe he has a plan to appoint more advisors, because it's not humanly possible to deal 27 ministry as a prime minister. So I think hopefully he will appoint some of the technical expert, those who are expert on that particular ministry. Number one. And number two is, once the government is fully formed, all the advisors, because in our country, hopefully 40 or 42 ministry. So we need 40 or 42 advisors, because the earlier caretaker government and this caretaker government, it's a different. Because earlier the caretaker government was for 3 months, and that 3 months their mandate was only to conduct the election. So they used to do the day-to-day activities, no decision-making issues. So only the on 11 that government was 2 years, although they took some of the decision-making power, which actually the caretaker government and interim government, they usually don't do that. But I don't know what the caretaker government duration will be. But if I think that if it is 2 years, so with these 2 years they will take some major infrastructure development, especially I said the High Court judges and the Appellate Division judges. This quota system for whom Sheikh Hasina has to fall down. And this quota system, even a government peon, if his appointment, he needs an interview. He needs a written exam. But the High Court exam, High Court judge and Appellate Division judge, they don't need any exam even for an interview. Only if he has a practice for 10 years with the High Court, and if he has a good connection with the running political party, and he is an appointment with the judge. And also, I would like to draw the attention through your show. There was an attempt, the Police Reform Ordinance 2007, and that was proposed, and I was one of the member of that committee. And we made a very fantastic proposal, ordinance, but caretaker government initially agreed. But at the second year, I don't know, they did not agree, and they thought if we want to be in power more, we also need to behave the political party as they did it. So they did not agree, and we asked the political government when Sheikh Hasina came in power, and she also did the same thing and also did not agree. And that is the problem for the last 16 years. Police is in this position, and the police, the acceptability to the common people of Bangladesh, it's not zero, it has become minus. These are the problem. So these are the issues. And also, if you go to the military, but the last 16 years, they have categorized when they goes for the promotion board. who belongs to BNP, he is given the B, who is Arm League A, who is the neutral, he is a N, who is a anti-Arm League, he is a AA, who is a Jamaat, he is a J, and thereby they have been promoted. It is happened in the all area. So I will urge and request through your show in this government, those who are policymaker, especially Dr. Asif Nazrul, Home Advisor, and the Chief Advisor and the other advisor. Please, you must give more attention. These are the democratic institutions for their political party will be bound to do accordingly. Because if you give the authority enormous facility to the political party, they will not usually adapt all those good issues because they want to remain in power.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bobby Hajjaj,
Yes.
what is your focus?
Thank you again. First and foremost, it was very nice to hear my honorable co-discussant because of his expertise, especially in sort of the administration of the police forces. He's one of the insiders, and I do hope, I know that he was one of those who suffered at the hands of this despotic government. So I do hope that now that this despotic Awami fascist government is gone, he gets reinstated in his rightful position in the police forces for all, sort of all that he has done throughout his able career. Regarding the government, many points have been coming up, and many detractors of this interim government, and I believe most of the detractors of the interim government are people who are left behind by Hasina's fascist regime, and they've been trying to question the constitutionality of this interim government. It is quite clear, as sort of my honorable co-discussant pointed out, that it is a constitutional interim government. It is constitutional by the Constitution's doctrine of necessity. It is constitutional, so there's not much argument there. There are a couple of things there, operational and pragmatic. Whenever we have a government, the government always comes with a mandate, and the government always comes with sort of a mandated target. So for any elected government, the mandate usually is betterment of the people of the country and overall betterment of the country. For any government that's not an elected government, and the only sort of example that we have of such are caretaker governments that we have experienced from 1990, and caretaker governments' mandates have always been a free and fair election. Now obviously, normally up to 2006, when caretaker governments took on the role of a caretaker government, there was a smooth flow of governmental sort of activities, and so they could sort of clarify their mandate, they could clarify the time frame, 3 months, so on and so forth, very easily. This time around, we've had a massive revolution, and this is an interim government after a massive revolution. So obviously clarifying anything is difficult, but operationally this government, this interim government, and again we all wanted this government. I personally sort of also asked for Dr. Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel laureate, one of the brightest names of our country globally, to be the head of this caretaker government, and I applaud each and every member of the current government. But operationally speaking, this current interim government doesn't have the operational capacity to institute large-scale institutional reforms. Forget the mandate, I don't think that's there to begin with, large-scale institutional reforms, but they do need to initiate reforms, institutional reforms, but institutional reforms that are directly related to hosting a free and fair election. Because over the last 15.5 years, as we've been discussing today even, that every institution has been politicized. The court politicized, as again my co-discussant was pointing out, that sort of how they have politicized the police forces, how they have politicized the judiciary, and so on and so forth. This politicization, we've got to get rid of it, and the interim government has started in a very sort of robust way. They have sort of asked for the resignation and received the resignation of the justices of the appellate division. I think so with the judiciary, many biased justices of the High Court division is probably going to be next. They've already asked for and received the resignation of the Inspector General of Police and many other important positions, including the DG of RAB, the Dhaka Metropolitan DMP Commissioner, and so on and so forth. So these are happening in many different positions. These positions have to be changed. Maybe some basic rules and regulations has to be changed as well. But that is the level of operational institutional reform that is, I believe, possible by this government, and that might fall under the actual mandate that was given to this government by the revolution. So the revolution was a people's revolution, but the people didn't vote for the interim government. There's also a pragmatic angle to this. What is the basis of power of this interim government? Now, we need this interim government to be very stable. And we are all working, I mean, us from the political arena, all the political parties, and I believe even, personas from the media like yourself want to support and stabilize this government so that it is stable. But to be pragmatic, it is our consensus, all the political parties and all of us, interest groups, it is our consensus that is the basis of power of the interim government. And this consensus will be limited, always. I mean, whenever it comes to consensus, there is always a limitation of how much consensus we can arrive at. And this consensus is probably going to be limited to electoral reforms that lead to free and fair elections. So even institutional reforms that lead to free and fair elections, which does include depoliticization of certain positions, of certain institutions. But depoliticization and widespread reform are not the same thing. So this caretaker government, this interim government, we are completely behind it, in full support of it. We all need to work, and we are working so that this government is strong, robust and stable. But within a certain period of time, maybe a few weeks, this interim government needs to clarify, which they haven't yet, and we're not pressurizing them because, again, extreme circumstances. But very soon, within the next few weeks, they will have to clarify their mandate, and they should be able to clarify what that mandate covers, and then we can all have a discussion on how much time it might take to achieve those goals.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bobby Hajjaj, and thank you very much, Barrister Zillur. We are going for a short break. Viewers, we are going for a short break. Please keep watching. We are back to the talk show Promise Bangladesh, sponsored by Crown Cement, and this is Sinha M. Sayeed anchoring this talk show. We are having talks with Mr. Bobby Hajjaj, Chairman, NDM, and a leading political analyst, and other Mr. Barrister Zillur Rahman. He is also a leading political analyst and former police officer, Barrister Zillur Rahman. We know very well India is a very big factor in our geopolitics, especially in Southeast Asia. Former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, after resignation, she left for India, and now she is in India. Do you find any diplomatic or political catastrophe centering the presence of Sheikh Hasina in Delhi?
Yes, sir, Dr.Sinha M. Sayeed, because for the last 1 year, if you have heard my video and talk, and hopefully I also had a number of talk with you, in regards to the geopolitical issue, I said the issue of Bangladesh is not the same as like the Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan. I always said that Bangladesh is an exceptional, and that our political leaders has to understand. If the political leaders or the political parties, if they don't understand and absorb this difference between the other geopolitical issues of the countries with Bangladesh, I many of the time I said Bangladesh may be occupied by India. Why? Because you see that Nepal, Bhutan, Maldives, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Afghanistan were never was the colony of the part of India. When the British ruled our country, the Indian subcontinent or the India, they used to mean the East Pakistan, West Pakistan, and the present India. Now, if you see the map of Bangladesh, the Bangladesh is the inside of India, because the west part is India, north part is India, east part is India, and the south is only the Bay of Bengal. So if we are not diplomatic, if we are not technical, because this land is very important for the India, for their sovereignty and independence of India. Had I been the Indian national, what the Indian wants, I could also want the same thing. But if I am a Bangladeshi national, in that case I have to be more diplomatic, more strategic. Because for the India, why the India took Sikkim? Because Sikkim was never and never part of the British. That was the protectorate state. Nepal was the protectorate state. Bhutan was the protectorate state. But the Sikkim took occupied by the India because the China will infiltrate, and that's why they occupied Sikkim. So if they can occupy the Bangladesh, in that case their seven sister is not being disturbed, or they will not even dare enough to ask for the independence. So in that case, it is very vulnerable for us against India. And the next point you asked about the Sheikh Hasina. I think it is a problem, because all the media and from the India, they are saying that nobody is accepting the Sheikh Hasina political asylum. I don't believe. I think this is a propaganda by the India to keep the people of Bangladesh that as nobody is accepting Sheikh Hasina, and so there is no alternative, we have kept Sheikh Hasina. So from your show, I request the Indian authority. She is our people. She was our ex-prime minister. Please, we have with the India extradition treaty, যুদ্ধ বিনিময় চুক্তি অথবা বন্দি বিনিময় চুক্তি. So India must send Sheikh Hasina, and the people of Bangladesh will try her in our normal court, because we have the court ready, the ICT, International Criminal Court. In that court, easily we can try the crime against humanity, genocide, and also it is a war crime, because Sheikh Hasina unofficially they declared the civil war, and that's why they ordered shoot to fire, and they ordered to kill the people. So in that case, the police, the BDR, the BGB, and the military, they did not follow the international humanitarian law and the Geneva Convention 1949. So all those crimes, it is a clearly genocide and also the war crime. And hopefully against Sheikh Hasina, there is a number of application has been given International Criminal Court to file a case. But your question, which you have answered, that the presence of Sheikh Hasina in India, is it a problem for Bangladesh? Yes, it is a problem for Bangladesh, because you did crime, and if you think that you did not make any crime, you are innocent. So she must come to Bangladesh, surrender to the law, surrender to the court, and if the court says she is innocent, fine, then she is acquitted and do the normal politics. And if not, she must be tried. She must be tried, and if she is found guilty as per law, she should be punished.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bobby Hajjaj,
Yes.
you are a rising voice of the coming generation, at the same time is a political leader. Taking all these things taken together, what is your conclusion about ongoing landscape centering Sheikh Hasina in India?
Right. Thank you. As my honorable co-discussant already brought up the issues. First and foremost, India is very important for us. India, sort of almost envelops us geographically. We have huge trade with it. It's a regional power. It's a regional hegemon. Having said that, it is also important to understand the relationship is not one way. Bangladesh is also very, very important for India. It's economically important for India, as in huge trade. It's defensively important for India, thanks to Myanmar, China, we're talking about Sikkim and the Bay of Bengal. And also defensively, the Seven Sisters. And for a very long time, especially the last 15 and a half years, we have tiptoed around everything, every issue. Be that water sharing, be that sort of violence and deaths at our borders. Every issue with India, we've tried to tiptoe around them. Every foreign minister, every foreign ministry official of the fascist Awami regime has treated India like the hegemon that India wants to be treated as. Now, they keep on forgetting that India is very important for us, but we are also very important for India. Again, economy, defense, and also foreign relations. So when this new government, I mean, you know, sort of in 2014, when the new Modi government arrived, they tried to change their foreign policy. Modi went look east, neighborhood first sort of policies. And within, you know, so the domain of these policies, Bangladesh became their primary focus. Why did Bangladesh become the primary focus? Because more or less over the last 10 years, they have lost everybody else. I mean, you know, they wanted to focus on the neighborhood. They lost everybody in the neighborhood. They lost Maldives, they lost Sri Lanka, they lost Nepal, everybody as good friends. They have relations with everybody, but they lost everybody as good friends. It was only Bangladesh that they had a tanglehold on. And the tanglehold was really because of the despotic and fascist government of Sheikh Hasina. Now, I was thrilled, I was overjoyed when even before arriving back in Bangladesh, as you know, sort of the future chief of the interim government, Professor Mohammad Yunus, while in France, spoke to reporters, spoke to the press, and in no uncertain terms made it very clear as Bangladesh's future foreign policy that if India was not favorable and friendly towards Bangladesh, then India was the one who had to worry about the Seven Sisters. So Bangladesh has power. This is very important to remember. And we know, you know, sort of from practical experiences, from all the treaties that the Hasina government has signed with India over the last 15 and a half years, that, that she gave India more than a toehold in our political domain. And again, as my co-discussant pointed out, that Hasina, the perpetrator of genocide, this is not a discussion point. She is a perpetrator of genocide. I mean, I personally, obviously we all have our own ways of addressing things, and a state, a head of state should always be addressed with a modicum at least of respect and honor. So when we talk about, you know, Begum Khaleda Zia, President Hussain Mohammad Ershad, President Zia Rahman, whomever we talk about them, we speak about them, you know, with respect. I can't deliver the same level or even any modicum of respect for a genocidal maniac, because Sheikh Hasina was a genocidal maniac. We know, I mean, we knew from before, but when these, you know, sort of Ainaghar came out, and when the details of the 5th of August morning and afternoon came out, when it was reported in every newspaper, every television channel in the country, official transcripts of Sheikh Hasina ordering the armed forces, ordering the police forces to open fire at unarmed citizens, and not by twos or threes or tens or twenties, but by the hundreds of thousands, if not the millions, to open fire at them. I mean, this is worse than Jallianwala Bagh. This is worse than what sort of Dyer did. This is worse than what Idi Amin did. This is worse than any other genocide Milosevic did. Any other genocidal maniac in the history of the world that we are aware of did. Because Milosevic was getting, you know, sort of trying to kill some other race. Idi Amin was trying to kill some other race, other tribe. Sheikh Hasina was ordering our military, our police forces to mow down our children like they were ants. Anybody, I believe, even calls Sheikh Hasina a prime minister is doing injustice to the state, to the position of prime minister, to the history and the legitimacy of our state. Having said that, yes, India giving, you know, sort of officially India has not given succor to Hasina, officially. They are basically saying that, you know, this is a go-between till Hasina finds refuge somewhere. Hasina is staying here to find refuge. But as my honorable co-discussant pointed out, that doesn't hold much water. I think it is part of the game, as, you know, sort of a foreign policy game that India is playing right now. And again, we want to be friends with India. We want to get back to a state where India and Bangladesh have normal relations. We have good trade. They have soft power. We have soft power. This sort of a situation. But I think the, you know, sort of foreign policy apparatus of India is way too invested in the wrong investment they made with the despotic Hasina government, and they're trying to retrieve as much of that as possible. Through your show, through the audience, whoever, you know, people who are watching, I would like to convey this message to our Indian counterparts, who are actually our brothers and sisters, to our Indian counterparts, that we want to be friends. We hope that the state of India, the government of India, will also want to be friends, and they will rid themselves of these despotic practices, of the despotic Hasina, return Hasina to Bangladesh where she can face fair trial, not mob justice, fair trial, but return her to Bangladesh where she can. People who are accused or who are guilty of genocide need to go through the legal process. We need to show our boys and girls, our children, and we need to show the world that justice will prevail and does prevail in Bangladesh. And we want India to be our good friends in that measure.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Bobby Hajjaj, and thank you very much, Barrister Zillur Rahman. And now we have to summarize everything. Well, viewers, our talk show is almost over, and as usual, I have to summarize what the two speakers opined, commented, and expressed here. Basically, both of them spoke very high about the future of Bangladesh and what happened during the reign of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. It was very much shocking, and to some extent stands against humanity, against democracy, against all sorts of justices. And both of them believe the future of Bangladesh depends on the young generation. And Barrister Zillur Rahman categorically said that so many reforms needed in the field of judiciary, in the field of police and other areas. And Mr. Bobby Hajjaj also narrated the whole thing in the light of his own political understanding. And he emphasized that it is a time to get united. And about Bangladesh-India relations, both of them are of the mind, same mind, that the sheltering of Sheikh Hasina in India, maybe it doesn't matter at all, but India should take very broader perspective from their own standpoints. They need the Bangladesh. And if they need the Bangladesh, it doesn't mean India needs Awami League. It should play diplomacy all the tracks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that is the only way. The India should understand the very mind of the people of Bangladesh, because India is very important in our foreign policy, because there is 7 sisters and we are a sandwich country. Northeast, there are 7, at this very moment there are 8, not 7, there are 8 states, including Sikkim. So India should understand the very importance of Bangladesh, and Bangladesh leaders, that Mr. Barrister Zillur Rahman said, should understand, realize what is the strategy, what is the geopolitics, and that need the very good quality of leadership in Bangladesh also. So the future of Bangladesh depends also the standard of leadership, and we all hope that India will understand Bangladesh, and Bangladesh trying its level best to be good with India. And we have seen, by this time, High Commissioner of India in Bangladesh had talks with our Foreign Affairs Advisor, Mr. Tawheed Hussain, and categorically the High Commissioner passed a message to him that India shall stand by Bangladesh during this time. Very positive mood and mood. And thank you very much. We'll meet you again in the next talk show. Thank you.